I finally realized my best friend was the most toxic person in my life. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post something like this on YouTube, but I guess I've reached that point where keeping it bottled up is eating me alive. I've been carrying around this weight for years, and the more I look back on it, the more I realize I lost some of the best years of my life to someone who was never really my friend. Or maybe she was, at least at first. But by the end, what we had was anything but friendship. Her name was Sonia. We met in our first year of college, and at the time, she was everything I thought I wanted in a friend. Loud, confident, funny in that sarcastic way that made everyone around her laugh even when she was making fun of them. She had this magnetic pull. When she walked into a room, people noticed. And I was the opposite. Quiet, cautious, the kind of person who double-checks if they're standing in the right line at the cafeteria. We ended up as dorm neighbors. She knocked on my door the very first night, holding a bottle of cheap wine like it was an olive branch. "Roomy neighbor initiation," she said, grinning. I didn't drink much back then, but I let her in, and we stayed up until 3 a.m. talking about everything from childhood dreams to our biggest fears. That night, I remember thinking, wow, maybe college won't be so lonely after all. Over the next few weeks, we became inseparable. Breakfast together, walking to class, staying up late binging shows. She had this way of making me feel included in everything, like I was finally part of something bigger than just my little world. For someone who'd always been the shy kid in high school, it was intoxicating. But here's the thing about Sonia, she could be intense. When she liked you, she really liked you. But when she was annoyed, even a little, it was like being on the wrong end of a thunderstorm. The first time I noticed it, we were in the cafeteria, and I casually mentioned that I might join another group for lunch the next day because one of my classmates had invited me. Sonia's smile froze for half a second before she laughed it off. "Oh sure, go hang with the nerds. Just don't come crying back when you realize they're boring." It was said as a joke, but something about the way her eyes lingered on me made my stomach twist. Still, I brushed it off. Everyone jokes, right? Over time, those little comments stacked up. If I got a good grade, she'd joke about me being a tryhard. If I wore something new, she'd say, "Cute, but not really your style." And whenever I made plans without her, she'd sulk or guilt-trip me until I canceled. At the time, I told myself it was just her sense of humor, that I was too sensitive. After all, she was still the person who stayed up all night with me when I was homesick, who lent me money when I was short on groceries, who made me laugh so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. But the cracks were forming. By our second year, we'd fallen into a wider circle of friends, about 6 of us who hung out regularly. And that's when I really started noticing how Sonia operated. She was always the center of attention, the loudest voice, the one who decided where we went, what we did. If she didn't want to do something, nobody did it. And if someone disagreed with her, she'd tease them until they caved. I remember one night, we were all supposed to go to this open mic poetry event because one of our friends, David, was performing. Sonia rolled her eyes and said, "Poetry? What are we, middle-aged divorcees?" Everyone laughed, even David, though I could tell it stung. Eventually, we ended up going to a bar instead, and David didn't mention his poetry again. I hated that I didn't speak up, but at the same time, I felt like if I did, I'd be the next target. Sonia had this unspoken rule, you were either with her or against her. And I was terrified of being against her. Because here's the ugly truth, being her friend came with perks. She knew all the cool parties, she made me feel less invisible, and when she was in a good mood, she could make even the most boring day feel like an adventure. She had this way of convincing me that life was more exciting with her in it, and she wasn't entirely wrong. So I stayed. The turning point, at least the first one, happened during our 3rd year. I had started dating this guy, Rohan. He was sweet, a little awkward, the kind of guy who actually listened when you talked. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone saw me, not just as Sonia's sidekick, but as me. Sonia wasn't thrilled. At first, she made little digs, calling him Romeo or the puppy. Then she started finding excuses to tag along whenever we went out. I didn't mind at first, I thought maybe she was just being protective. But then things escalated. One night, after a party, Rohan walked me back to my dorm. Sonia had gone home earlier. The next day, she pulled me aside with this smug look on her face. "So, your boy couldn't keep his eyes to himself last night." I froze. What do you mean? She smirked. Oh, please. He was totally checking me out when you went to the bathroom. Don't act like you didn't notice. My stomach dropped. Rohan? No way. But the way she said it, so casually, so confidently, planted a seed of doubt. I confronted Rohan later, and he looked genuinely hurt. I'd never do that. I like you, not her. I believed him, or at least, I wanted to. But Sonia kept dropping little comments over the next few weeks. Careful, he's staring again. You sure he's not into me? It drove me crazy. Eventually, I snapped at Rohan for looking at her too much, and he got defensive. We had our first big fight, and a week later, he broke up with me, saying he felt like I didn't trust him. Sonia was there to comfort me, of course. She brought ice cream, listened to me cry, and then said, "See? I told you he wasn't right for you. But you've got me, you don't need guys like that." At the time, I clung to her words like a lifeline. But now, looking back, I can't shake the feeling that she sabotaged my relationship on purpose. The isolation after that, things got worse. Sonia didn't like it when I made friends outside of her circle. If I tried, she'd mock them until I stopped inviting them around. She wanted me all to herself, though she'd never admit it. One day, I mentioned that I was thinking of joining the campus book club. She laughed and said, "Wow, you really want to lean into the nerd stereotype, huh?" I laughed it off, but I never went to that meeting. Another time, I got close to a girl from one of my classes, Anika. We studied together a lot, and for once, I felt like I had a friend who genuinely cared about me without strings attached. Sonia noticed, of course. One night, she casually mentioned, "You know Anika talks behind your back, right? She told me you're kind of clingy." I was crushed. I pulled away from Anika, who seemed confused but didn't push it. Months later, I found out Sonia had lied, and Anika never said those things. By then, the friendship had fizzled out. That was Sonia's pattern. She'd find ways to make me doubt anyone who got too close. And stupidly, I let her. Cracks in the illusion. It wasn't all bad, though. That's what made it so confusing. Sonia could be the most generous person at times. She once lent me money for rent when I was struggling, and she never asked for it back. She threw me a surprise birthday party when my family forgot. She even defended me once when someone in class tried to take credit for my work. Those moments kept me hooked. They made me think, see? She really does care about me, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. I felt drained after spending time with her, like I had to constantly monitor my words, my actions, even my thoughts. I started losing sight of who I was outside of being Sonia's friend. By the time we graduated, I barely recognized myself. And yet, I still couldn't imagine cutting her off. Because here's the thing, toxic friendships don't feel toxic at first. They feel like home, until one day, you realize the walls are caving in. Graduating from college was supposed to be the start of something new. I remember walking across that stage, diploma in hand, feeling this swell of pride, and also this strange, hollow dread. Because as much as I told myself I was ready to step into adulthood, I was still tethered to Sonia. We both ended up in the same city after graduation. I got an entry-level job at a publishing house. Sonia bounced between marketing internships, claiming she was waiting for the right fit. We moved into separate apartments but only a few blocks apart. At first, it felt exciting, like our college friendship had just evolved into the next stage. We spent weekends together, called each other after bad days, still did almost everything as a pair. But the older we got, the clearer the cracks became. At work, I made a few new friends, co-workers who invited me to happy hours or trivia nights. Sonia didn't like that. Whenever I mentioned plans without her, her voice would turn sharp. "Wow, abandoning your bestie for your work buddies already? Don't forget who was there for you when no one else was." It was guilt wrapped in loyalty, and it worked. I canceled plans more times than I can count just to avoid upsetting her. She also had this way of turning my achievements into backhanded compliments. When I got my first promotion, she said, "Congrats. Must be nice to get rewarded for sitting at a desk all day. Some of us are actually working hard." I laughed it off, but inside, it stung. Why couldn't she just be happy for me? The real unraveling began with something small. At least, it seemed small at the time. A mutual acquaintance, Priya, mentioned at a party that Sonia had told her I was thinking of quitting my job. I blinked in confusion. What? No, I'm not. Priya shrugged. That's what Sonia said. That you're miserable and probably won't last another month. I confronted Sonia later, half expecting her to deny it. Instead, she rolled her eyes. Oh, relax. I was just making conversation. Besides, you are always complaining about your job. It wasn't the first time she'd twisted my words, but it was the first time I caught her outright lying. And once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. She lied about little things all the time, about who she was with, what people supposedly said about me, even about me. The worst was when she told someone I'd cheated on Rohan back in college. When it got back to me, I felt physically sick. She laughed it off again. Come on, it's not like he's around to care. Why are you so sensitive? That's when I started pulling away. Of course, Sonia noticed. And she didn't take it well. Any time I tried to create distance, she'd flip the script. If I said she'd hurt me, she'd insist I was imagining things. If I pointed out something she'd done, she'd call me paranoid. You always twist everything I say. Do you even hear yourself? You sound crazy. At one point, I genuinely started wondering if I was crazy. I kept second-guessing my own memories, my feelings. That's the thing about gaslighting, you don't realize it's happening until you're already drowning in self-doubt. The final straw came about 2 years after graduation. I had been dating someone new, Arjun, for a few months. He was kind, funny, and patient in a way that made me realize how unhealthy my dynamic with Sonia had become. Sonia, predictably, didn't approve. She made digs about him constantly. He's too quiet. He's not ambitious enough. You could do better. One night, Arjun and I threw a small dinner party at my apartment. Sonia was invited, of course. She showed up late, already tipsy, and immediately dominated the room. She made snide comments about the food, flirted shamelessly with Arjun in front of me, and at one point, loudly told a story about how I'd once drunk texted my ex, a lie, by the way. I laughed it off for the sake of the group, but inside, I was humiliated. After everyone left, Arjun gently asked, why do you let her talk to you like that? I didn't have an answer. The real explosion happened 2 weeks later. I had told Sonia I couldn't hang out because Arjun and I had plans. She showed up at my apartment anyway, uninvited, pounding on the door until I let her in. She was drunk again, demanding to know why I was ditching her for some guy. When I told her she needed to leave, she sneered. Wow. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? You'd be nothing without me. You think he really loves you? Please. The only reason anyone even notices you is because of me. Something in me snapped. For years, I had swallowed her insults, her manipulation, her control. But in that moment, I finally saw her for what she was, not a friend, but a parasite. Someone who thrived on making me small so she could feel big. I told her to get out. She screamed, cursed, called me ungrateful, pathetic. I slammed the door in her face and collapsed on the floor, shaking. That was the last time we spoke. Cutting Sonia off was both the hardest and the best thing I've ever done. For weeks, I felt guilty. My phone buzzed with messages from her, angry at first, then apologetic, then manipulative again. I can't believe you're throwing away 10 years of friendship. I'm sorry, okay? But you're overreacting. You'll come crawling back. You always do. I blocked her eventually, but not before I cried myself to sleep more nights than I care to admit. Toxic friendships don't end cleanly. They leave scars. The hardest part was unlearning the version of myself I'd become around her. I didn't realize how much I'd shrunk to fit her shadow until she was gone. I didn't realize how many opportunities I'd missed, how many friendships I'd abandoned, how much confidence I'd lost. Arjun was a lifeline through it all. He reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that I deserved better, that real friends don't tear you down. Slowly, I started rebuilding. I joined a book club, the one I'd always been too afraid to try in college. I reconnected with Anika, who, to my surprise, welcomed me back with open arms once I explained what had happened. I even started therapy, where I unpacked years of self-doubt and guilt. It wasn't easy. Some days, I still hear Sonia's voice in my head, mocking me, belittling me. But now, I recognize it for what it is, an echo, not the truth. Looking back, I think the hardest part is accepting that I let it go on for so long. I stayed because I was scared of being alone, because I confused intensity for loyalty, because I thought I owed her for the good times. But friendship isn't supposed to be a debt. It's supposed to be mutual, kind, supportive. I used to think cutting her off meant I failed somehow, that I wasn't strong enough to fix things. Now I know it was the opposite. Walking away was strength. Choosing myself was strength. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: not all toxic people come with warning labels. Some come wrapped in laughter and late night talks and inside jokes. But if you constantly feel smaller around someone, if their love feels more like a leash, if you're scared of disappointing them, that's not friendship. That's control. I don't hate Sonia. At least not anymore. I think she's deeply insecure, maybe even broken in ways she doesn't understand. But it's not my job to fix her, and it never was. Today, my life is quieter, steadier, and so much freer. I have friends who lift me up instead of tearing me down. I have a partner who respects me. I have myself again. And that, more than anything, feels like finally being free.